fear is useful. It can be harnessed to protect you. So whenever I face fear on the track or off road, I don't overreact by pulling back too far, but I definitely pause and consider, why am I feeling this way? Um, and usually, when I tune into my instinct, it's either that I'm not comfortable enough to go ahead with what I'm doing or to progress further than the limit that I've reached. And that doesn't mean that I never will. It just means for that moment, I just need to take a minute. So that's useful. It protects you.
You're listening to the Mission Makers Show, a podcast that inspires humans to get into the mindset of success. My name's Farah Nanji, and I'm the founder of a business in the motorsports industry that explores leadership lessons from things like Formula One. I'm also a DJ and music producer in the underground electronic scene, and a public speaker on key topics like resilience, building high-performance teams, overcoming learning difficulties, and stimulating creativity. And to tie it all together, I love writing thought-provoking content as a journalist for these industries which are so unique in themselves. On this show, I'm sitting down with some of the most inspiring and driven people I've met around the world to talk about their processes, their failures, the lessons they've learned, and how they are truly making an impact for this world. Hi guys, and welcome back to episode 9, season 2 of the Mission Makers podcast. Today we're joined by a good friend of mine, Dania Akeel. Dania is Saudi Arabia's first ever female superbike racing driver. What particularly stands out for me on today's episode is how she approaches the racetrack in an incredibly spiritual manner, and the experiences that she shared with us where she embraced an accident that she had on the track last year with absolutely no fear. It sounds crazy to say that, but as you'll hear in the show, she shares her views on not letting fear overtake her in that moment, because what was about to happen next was completely out of her control, including COVID-19, which shortly took after the world. It's a great episode with many interesting insights from her experiences of not being allowed to drive in her own country as a woman until recently, the journey to her becoming a superbike racer, and the landscape of motorsports in Saudi, which has seen the Dakar Rally and Extreme E already take place this year, and Formula One, which is set to take place in Jeddah in the penultimate race this year. Dania also shares her experiences of co-hosting the opening ceremony of the Dakar Rally, the world's most notorious rally, which she hopes to compete in someday. And I love that her reason for doing so was, as she says, to face herself. Unfortunately, the connection between Saudi and London was a little bit delayed when we were recording, so we do have a few moments in today's show that lags a little bit, so please do accept our apologies for that. We did persevere as best we could. And just before we begin, if you're interested in some really cool rewards like DJ lessons, signed books from our guests, and exclusive merchandise, head over to www.patreon.com/missionmakers to check out how you can access these exclusive rewards. And thank you to all of you who've been writing into us and subscribing to the show. It really makes a difference, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you love the content we're making here at Mission Makers. Dania, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Farah, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
How's it going in Saudi?
Can't complain. You know, we've got quite a lot of freedom. We're able to move around quite freely. We still aren't able to travel, but we're supposed to hear from that soon. So we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be in the UK together in person soon.
Yeah, definitely. I can't believe, you were saying earlier that it's been completely, the borders have been closed for a year. That's just crazy. Crazy times we're in right
but
now.
it allowed us, it allowed us to have more freedom within Saudi, which was honestly really a blessing. So it's considering everything and given the circumstances, it's actually been it's been all right.
Good stuff. So I want to sort of start off by taking you back to when you were much younger. You're 10 years old, and you're wandering down the aisles of Toys R Us with your father, where you spotted a go-kart for the first time. So what do you remember about that moment? Is there any part of you that kind of recognizes this might have been like an innate calling to you at that point?
Do you know, I'm not sure how much I was aware of defining it as a calling, but definitely my nature was drawn to driving, to cars, to bikes, to movement, mobility. speed. It was just a natural joy. It was just joy. Whenever I drove anything, I was just so happy. So, I mean, if you relate your calling to feeling that very natural joy, happiness, and peace, then yes. As a child, did I know that? I doubt it. But I mean, I saw that go kart and I just went crazy. Wow, it's a car, it's a car, it's a car my size. I mean, I don't have the car my size. Um, it was great fun. It was great fun. I took it in the sand, which I mean, I shouldn't have, but we managed with some guys at the house. We figured out how to make it run on different kinds of terrain, messed around a bit with the engineering system. Maybe it was a calling, but I wouldn't say a
Were you
knowing one yet.
were you allowed to take that car on the track at the time?
So we didn't have a track. What I did was I would just find the longest road in any private house, whether it was my grandparents. Actually, it was my grandparents. They had a long driveway. They just go up and down, up and down, and that's why I ended up on the sand because I needed more room to run. So I live in Jeddah, which is on the coast. So I sticked onto the shore. Obviously, got stuck quite a few times, but served me well in my rallying now in my rally
Mm,
field. So
mm.
everything has that starting point, right?
100%, 100%. So that, with that being said, something that we like to do for all our guests on Mission Makers is to go a little deeper into the meaning behind their name. So with that being said, we found out that in Islam, the name Dania means close and near, God is my judge. And we happen to be speaking during a very holy time in Islam, which is of course Ramadan. So has this meaning ever had an impact on you at all?
I always knew that Dania meant close, right? So feeling close, you feel close to others, close to. So I do love, I love people a lot. Um, I have close friends, and even people who me, I don't feel that there's too many barriers between myself and another person when I speak to them. Maybe that's you know um, part of me being named Dania, but I definitely can resonate with it for sure.
That's very interesting. Yeah, we always feel like there's a subconscious, kind of gravitation towards what a person's name is, and yeah, it's really interesting to kind of to sort of see how that's had an influence on our guests. So I know that your early ventures into everything automotive was somewhat fueled by your dad's love of cars, but I also know that your mum wasn't so keen on the idea. So do you think that like those two opposing energies like actually balanced each other out, and have they kind of been both quite supportive of your journey and the road that you've decided to take?
Well, I mean, I think for any mother, I'm not a mother yet. I hope one day, but I think for any mother, it's scary, right, for a child to be in motorsports, even though it's not as dangerous as it looks, and the statistics don't reflect that imagination of how dangerous it is. So fear can run away with you essentially. But if you look at there's high risk. It's not maybe as high as one would imagine from looking at the machines and listening to the sound and watching people race them. I doubt that the risk factor is as high as a mother's fear would imagine. Fear is useful. It can be harnessed to protect you. So whenever I face fear on the track or off road, I don't overreact by pulling back too far, but I definitely pause and consider, why am I feeling this way? Um, and usually, when I tune into my instinct, it's either that I'm not comfortable enough to go ahead with what I'm doing or to progress further than the limit that I've reached. And that doesn't mean that I never will. It just means for that moment, I just need to take a minute. So that's useful. It protects you. When my and during my last race, I was in Jordan Baja, the cross country Baja rally, and there was this one moment where at the top of a dune, and it was sandy, but with rocks in between the sand all over the place, and it was so steep that I couldn't see what was coming. So, and I felt fear, even though I had approached dunes where I couldn't see what was next before, but my instincts, I wasn't afraid. In that moment, I was afraid. And the co-pilot, Stephanie, told me, "You're not sure." I said, "No, I'm not sure." He said, "Let's find out." And I said, "No." There's a no there. So we turned around. We did a semicircle, and then I found a sandy part which didn't have rocks through it, and I took that line down the dune. I still couldn't see what was coming, but I didn't feel afraid. And out of curiosity, I looked to the right to see what the terrain looked like on the place that I had been afraid, and it was full of rocks. So the chances of us not having such a smooth landing were quite high, and that really was that fear had indicated to me that I was prepared to take that chance. So fear always has this negative element about it, and I don't usually like to entertain my fears or let them overcome me. But if you use them a bit as a guide, they can be a protection. So my mother's fears, I try not to adopt hers because they're not rational. She's not on the track with me. But that concept of being afraid, if you utilize it if you accept it and open into it as a guide, can be, can give you he'll just get into a car, he wants to see how it works, and he will just not think twice about flooring it,
Mm.
provided there's not no one else around. And that impulse and that aggression is also essential in motorsport. So you said it well. I think that equilibrium, that balance serves me well. I still learning how to make the most of all the elements that exist within me or within any person. It's a balance. It's we say the more experience you have, the more wisdom you gain as to how to maintain that inner solidity, that equilibrium. So I think I'm getting better at it. I don't know. I hope so, but that's the goal. The goal is to find that balance. You know.
Mm. I think it's so powerful what you just said there, because when you go down dunes, you never know what's on the other side. So already, there's a fear, there is like an unknown, but you kind of go headstrong into it. But for you to kind of actually pause at that moment and have this overwhelming feeling of intuition, which perhaps was, kind of maybe sprung by fear, but in the end it was an intuition. That's really interesting. And I love what you said about, like, we are all finding out the different elements and what's within us. And also, as you sort of alluded to there, like, it may look kind of crazy, and to people that are not within this world, they don't realize that it's actually very measured risk for the most part. So that's super interesting. So before we go deeper into racing, I wanted to just touch upon a few cultural things. And firstly, I wanted to talk about your experience of boarding school here in the UK. Because as you may know, there's been a lot of horrific things that have come to light recently about many of the most prestigious schools, from Eton to Westminster. And I wondered, what was your experience like? Did you ever witness any of these things? And how does it kind of make you feel about the education system, reflecting back and kind of knowing that during our time this stuff was like happening, like amongst our peers and our friends?
Um, Look, I mean, I can't speak for any school or any person other than my own experience, because that's what I know for a fact. I know my history, I know my schooling days, and I know what happened during my personal time in the classroom in the school. And I'm relieved to say, very grateful to say, that I had a positive experience in boarding school in the UK. I went to a school called Priorsfield, which is in Godalming near Guildford, in Surrey. So beautiful, beautiful area. My mother went to that school, uh, before me, and there was this familiarity about it. She was super comfortable with us
Mm.
being there, myself and my sister Dana. And it was a small school. It wasn't one of those large academic regimen institutions that are top five in the country that take you to the. It wasn't that kind of school. It was a strong school, but it was small. It's 300 students, all girls, very close knit community. They were very big on awarding our efforts, less focused on results. Of course they cared about results, any school would, but that wasn't the driving force. Not show an ounce of humility. That wasn't the kind of culture that they had. They were good at sports, and they had a nice, good art department as well. But it was just an all rounder. It was, on average, it was an all rounder good school. They weren't super excelling at anything in particular that made it tunnel vision focused on getting the best of the top of the top. It was, and they got good results from their culture. I mean, I got all A's for my GCSEs. I got an A star in Arabic, so I'm not sure if that counts, but I got A's and everything else. And I was surprised. I was surprised. When I picked up the phone to get the grades, I asked the teacher, "Are you sure?" And she said, Dania, I was surprised as well.
Wow.
Because they always told me, yeah, because she said it in a nice way, because they always told me you have a lot of potential. You just have to work harder and then you can realize it. And I was a bit careless. I didn't work too hard. I didn't like to push myself too far. But I guess I did during the exams. I must have, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten those grades. So I had a positive experience. And the boarding house was very familiar. All the girls were really sweet. You did have cases of bullying and people being left out and things like that, but they addressed it. They spoke to us, taught us on a very personal level, um, why we should behave, include everybody, and compassion and kindness. I mean, the I think the slogan of the school is hope. I shouldn't get it wrong. I shouldn't guess, but it's. I'll have to fish it out for you later. Of a
Mm,
community, a family feel. It was more of a family feel than a machine that wanted to produce these ultra high performing employees. It was more
mm,
of a family that wanted to produce these good characters.
mm,
That's the environment that I felt that I was a part of. And then when we got to the sixth form, which is the last 2 years during the A level, we had the sixth form house, and that was an incredible experience because it was they gave us an element of independence. The head of sixth form, Miss Lewis, she would speak to us like adults, like her friends. And I think that had a big impact because when an adult or somebody 30, 40 years your senior, or 20 years your senior, speaks to you as if you're their peer, you adopt their behaviors more easily. You stop talking to them like you're 16 years old. You start talking to them like you're closer in age, and that brings out those more mature elements of your character. They invite you into the dialogue as an equal, so you bring those mature behaviors with you because of the context. And Miss Lewis did that really well. Whenever there was a problem, she would just come and tell me, Dania, like, why did you do that? What's going on? Something going on, just try to understand, not just, oh, you're a reckless child, you need to learn how to behave properly, just trying to enforce habits on you. That's not how it was. It was more about communication, understanding why, um, and like I said, inviting you as an adult to engage with them and move forward. I
mm,
mean, it's a positive experience, really. You take from boarding school what you want. It could have been a place for me to exercise misery, being away from my home and my family, and sulk. And I mean, it could have been because I was away, but I love people, and and I loved my friends and I loved the teachers. And so I realized I wasn't away from my home, but rather I was in a place that is a kind of a new home, and I just had kind of more. I had the UK, I had my school, and then I had my house in Saudi and my family, so I had more rather than being lifted away from Saudi and into this foreign place. Actually, when you embrace it and you just kind of open into it, it doesn't become foreign; it becomes where you are. And if you're there, then it can be home. So yeah, it was very positive experience. And what's great about it is that I'm not the type that has to look back and say, "Oh, it was nice. I wish I appreciated it at the time." I actually did appreciate it when I was there, so I'm happy about that. I was lucky.
that's really good that you had a very enriching experience. And I agree, I think, a nurturing environment is ultimately what gets you, to achieve and unlock your potential in life rather than kind of being sort of, you know, as you said, being quite militant about it. I mean, everyone receives things differently, but yeah, in my experience, I personally think that the nurturing approach is far more better in treating each other as equal. And yeah, it kind of makes you realize, you know, you get much more you get more grounded into being present then, because there's no fear of like being scolded and other things. But I am really happy to hear that you had a positive experience. So secondly, I'm sure that you've been asked this a lot, but you are like the first female superbike rider in Saudi, and I know firsthand obviously how much you love cars. We met at the Royal Automobile Club in London a few years back. So I want to hear from your perspective, you know, what has been the reality of women not being allowed to drive in Saudi up until recently? Did you agree with it growing up? Did you understand why that was the case? And did it hinder you from actually being able to pursue and discover what you love in your own country?
You know, so my case is a bit, so my view is when I was here till I was 14. And then I went to boarding school, and then I stayed in London for uni, and I officially came back when I was about 27. The first year I came back when I was 27, I got a job at a school, and I used to be driven there and back. I didn't feel contained or frustrated because I had access to a car and somebody to drive it whenever I wanted. So I never felt like something was limiting me because it's what I knew. I had been born here uh, without women driving, and you know the human mind just adapts. You just adapt, and if you have no reference, it's much easier to do that. It wasn't that I used to be able to drive and it was taken away and then given back. That wasn't the case. It was just not done, and I had access to a car that could take me whenever and wherever. So I can't speak for somebody who didn't have that
Mm.
access. I speak only for myself, which I recognize as a privileged situation. So, but that being said, when we were given the right to drive and I did get my license, I thought that it wasn't going to make a big difference because it made a huge difference. Just psychologically, you being in the car and going somewhere that no one knows where you're going. I mean, it doesn't have to be a secret. You're probably just going to the pharmacy, but it gives you that ownership that no one has to know. Even the person who used to drive me, I mean, he was a nice guy, but he knew everything where I was going all the time, and it wasn't in an authoritative way. It was just he just knew because he was taking me. So when no one knew, you do get this sense of independence that you don't get otherwise, and that opened a lot of doors, not just in terms of like anything physical, but just mentally. Mentally, you just see things differently when you have that sort of personal freedom and space. So it must have changed the psychology of people quite a bit. As I said, I'd never struggled or suffered in terms of mobility, but I did feel a psychological shift
Mm.
at being able to go places alone. Um, Obviously, practically speaking as well, because before, when someone else was driving me, I would take him into consideration. He doesn't want to be in the car all day waiting for me to pick up things left, right, and center. I like to get up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym. Maybe that wouldn't suit some. It's But now that I'm alone and independent, I can go whenever, however, and for however long. So that was another element that also opened doors for me, instead of having to accommodate someone else's basic schedule just out of courtesy.
Mm.
It does make it for sure.
Do you feel safe like when you drive now, and do you feel that it was justified for it to have been banned because apparently it wasn't so safe? Do you feel there's an element of that, or
Don't I can't give my view because I don't know. It wasn't as though I went around and did a poll and asked people what they thought of women driving when it was banned. I never did that.
Mm.
I just so I don't know if it was safe or unsafe. What I do know is today when I am driving, it feels completely normal, completely safe. All the other people I encounter on the road have no issue whatsoever with me being a woman. They might have an issue if I cut in front of them or if I go too fast to overtake, things like that. Fine. but I've never experienced any discrimination in terms of my gender on the road, not at all. And the first couple of weeks, I actually got my license. The first week they were giving them out, and I got quite a few thumbs up from guys driving on the road, and they would cheer like that, or they would do
Mm,
this, or
mm,
there was a lot of encouragement.
mm,
I've been lucky. I haven't been target of anything negative.
mm, mm.
But so it's been wonderful.
Did you have a license in the UK? Like, had you driven here before, or was it like your first time ever driving a car when you got your license after the ban?
Yes, I got my UK license when I was 17.
Mm,
So I was at Pricefield at the time, and I booked my driving lesson on my 17th birthday.
mm,
So I was ready to go. I still remember I did it with the AA, and it was this manual Ford Focus. My driving teacher, Glenn, used to come a couple of times a week. We'd go out around Parisfield, and then within 4 or 5 months, I think I had my license. So I've been driving since I was 17. By the time the licenses came to Saudi, it was 10 years later. I had quite a lot of experience, and I was very comfortable on the road. The driving here is different. I mean, it's not the same as the UK. You've got to be alert at all times. But I was comfortable behind the wheel, definitely.
Interesting. But what's the reality today for like women who want to race in Saudi? I mean, are they allowed on racetracks? Can they go and drive in that sense? Is that a reality now?
Yeah, there are no limits when it comes to racing licenses. So I got the first racing license for speed bikes, and I used it to race on track in Dubai and Bahrain. Not in Saudi, only because there's no track that is suitable for bikes. And when it comes to car racing, you can also, I got the international rally license from the Saudi Federation, FIA license, and I used it for the FIA Cross Country Bahas World Cup races, the last two rounds. And as far as I know, there's no restriction on which racing license you can test for and apply for as a woman. I do know that the tracks here aren't ready for championships and tournaments and things like that, but that they're in progress apparently.
Mm,
I haven't actually seen one, but I'm also new to the space within Saudi, so I'm sure there's others who know more than me when it comes to what tracks are available and what will be available. Me personally, I've just been on the Bahrain circuit and Dubai and also Abu Dhabi as marina. They're the closest ones to me, and I went to those quite a bit. But yeah, as I said, when it comes to racing licenses, there's no limit for a woman.
Well, that's really good because, like, sometimes you see on this side of the pond, like, you see there are like drivers who just get so much like online hatred for just like being who they are, and it felt like there's like this huge cultural mindset. Obviously, it's at the beginning of change, but like it's interesting to see like how the country can kind of encourage more of a growth mindset in male counterparts. So to hear that like people give you a thumbs up when you drive, like that's really good, and that you feel safe most importantly when you're driving is obviously like really really
Yeah,
important.
I mean, I understand that maybe sometimes there's a different perception online, but that's why I like to speak from my personal experience and not from just these ideas of how many comments say what. Because at the end of the day, I mean, people feel safe behind a computer to say whatever they want, right?
Mm, mm,
But
mm,
what impacts me is my day to day. And if I enter a space which is male dominated, then that's my choice, and I know why I'm doing it and why I'm here. It's because it feels natural to me and I enjoy it, and I see the community, it benefits each other and they help each other, and people are just basically progressing and developing and growing. And I just like the atmosphere of motorsport, and that's why I'm around, and I like the activity, the sport itself. So matters to me. People will always communicate with me, and I've only had a positive experience. I'm sure that not everybody is applauding what I do, and that's their right. At the end of the day, everybody's opinion of you is not really your business. If you and I have a conversation, I'm naturally going to form an opinion, and you can't control that,
mm.
right? So that's really how I see it here in this space. I mean, if you're one of the few females, people will have an opinion, but it doesn't have to be negative. And even if it is, it's okay. That's their right. As long as it doesn't affect or impact my rights and my day to day,
Yeah.
then I'm not really concerned with it. You know, what are my rights? My rights are I can get any racing license I want. I'm welcome into any tournament or championship. I can hold the Saudi flag when I race. These are my rights and I'm given them. So if someone has a negative opinion, it doesn't impact me, you know?
Mm, mm.
But I have been mostly receiving positive feedback.
That's
No,
really good.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
you have to take it with a pinch of salt, of course. And you know that you're putting yourself against up that to be judged because people just do that, and like it doesn't, but it's sad to see, like it's sad to, I think there needs to be a lot more, like, sort of, just, I don't know, boundaries online or whatnot, but I think that goes without saying. So but yeah, going a bit deeper into like your journey with racing. So you won Rookie of the Year last year, which is a fantastic achievement. So, like, what are your thoughts on where you want to take this? Like, what would you like to kind of do next? What's in the pipeline?
Okay, so things changed quite a bit because of the border restrictions that we spoke about. So I was racing in Bahrain and Dubai at the national championship for both for the Superbikes. I was enjoying it very much. I mean, I was still at the back of the grid, but I was progressing, and I needed time to basically become more competitive. But when the borders closed, I actually didn't have access to those racetracks anymore. And I looked inward, and in Saudi, the rally championships and the rally, they have a Saudi championship for rallies. It's quite at a high standard. You've got really well known rally drivers coming from Saudi competing on an international level. We've got the landscape for it. We've got the tools. We've got the interest, the skill. So it's quite a locally it's just a natural sport for people to do here. So the Sharqiya Baha, which took place in the eastern province of Saudi, happened in March, and that's part of the FIA Baha, cross country Baha's World Cup. So that's at an international standard, and I knew that was coming. I had been exposed increasingly to the rally scene after the Dakar started to take place in Saudi Arabia from 2019. Sorry, 2020. 2020. And so I started to look more towards the rally. I still love circuits and I still love super bikes, and I'll probably go back for some track days. In terms of competition, I'm not too sure. But right now, my focus has shifted to the rally. So I did the Sharqiya Baha, and that was a great experience. After that, there was the Jordan Baha that was also in March, same championship, FIA cross country Bahas. I did that. That went well. I collected points at both of those races. So what I want to do for the rest of the year is, if I can get financed for it, look for sponsors, etc. Do more of those rounds to keep gathering points and just finish at a good level, gain some experience, and develop my skills, get better. Possibly do the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, which takes place in November, so I can get better on the dunes. There's another rally happening in Hayel in Saudi end of the year. That's also considered. It's an FIA cross country race, but not Bajas. And eventually, the plan is, or the intention is, to do the Dakar Rally. It's in Saudi
Nice.
Arabia. It's an incredible challenge. You face yourself during a race, and I can only imagine a 12-day intense rally. I mean, I think that would change you for life, So I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. And this is me talking now about my rough, but you know how life is. Last year I was talking about super bikes on circuits. So this is the plan, this is the idea, and then I'll see how things move and shift, and obviously I'll adapt accordingly. If I didn't have this psychology, then after my had an accident on the track and the borders closed, I wouldn't have been able to adapt into the rally. So I'm very aware that this is what I want to do and plan to do, but I'm also aware that I need to just keep my eyes open and be flexible and adaptable according to external circumstances as well, that of course will have an influence on what I do end up doing.
Well, very interesting that you touch upon psychology there, and with a long-term view of doing Dakar, obviously the toughest rally in the world. Some don't make it out alive, you know. I mean, that's nuts. So what does the psychology of racing mean to you, and what kind of a competitor are you on the track? Like, I personally feel that you can kind of see someone's true colors on the racetrack. Do you kind of agree with that, or do you feel there's a correlation from what you've learned on the track and then how that's like impacted you off track with like your philosophies or your behaviors in like a personal and professional setting?
I think that there is a direct correlation, to use your words, between a person's psychology and their character and how they perform in a race on a track. Um, when you're competing, well, for me, it's not so much trying to beat anyone else, it's trying to overcome the obstacles that are in my own mind from me, trying to beat me. Um, that can look like another competitor, but it's just you, really. So so I've seen my mind send me messages during a race, and I've had to consistently respond to those messages to drive myself to perform in the best way I possibly can. And those messages can vary. There was one race where I had overtaken the rookies and then slacked off because I wasn't driven enough to catch the middle of the grid because I knew I wasn't fast enough. And because I had that mentality, one of the rookies overtook me. And I saw myself become deflated during that lap. And I saw myself give up. And I saw myself finishing the race in last place. Um, but I didn't, because I saw that challenge appear, and I made a decision to keep pushing and beat the rookie that had passed me, because that was an unacceptable defeat, because that was above. I mean, I was capable of beating the rookies. So, and I wasn't capable of reaching the middle of the grid to beat the more experienced riders. I knew that. So you have to be aware of the tools that you have, the level that you're at, and the rest is psychology. You know, you have to go through all of these mental tricks to make sure that you reach your best performance. And my best at that race was to finish before last, but that was because I was beating the rookies. And I did, you know, I kept going till the last lap, and I overtook that bike again, and I finished where I wanted to finish. I didn't reach the middle of the grid, but I knew I wasn't there. That wasn't my race. My race was with the rookie. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So it's mental. You have your tools, you have your physical capability, your experience, your drive, and all of those things. But what takes you over the edge is really finding the right mindset to beat your own obstacles. And the same thing with the rally. At some point, I was thinking, how did I think I could do this? You know, I reached a point in one of the stages where I felt challenged by the terrain. And that was a mental block. It was an obstacle. It was just something told me that I couldn't do it because I was afraid. And I had to overcome that thought, because in a cross country rally, there was no other competitor like the road who passed me. That wasn't my challenge. My challenge was this mountain that I had to cross, and that happened to be the form which my fear kind of exercised its energy with. And I said, no, I'm here because the doors have all been opened for me to be here, which means, you know, at the end of the day, I have faith and I trust that I wouldn't be anywhere where I couldn't handle something. I wouldn't be in a situation I couldn't handle. So that thought dissolved my doubt that I should be there. And when the doubt dissolved, I finished the race. You just have to have that conviction that you are where you're meant to be. And I had that conviction because I knew that the whole road that led me to the race I had done from an intention that was harnessed toward improvement and growth and crossing boundaries. I didn't intend to go to the race so I can beat everybody, and you know, these other reasons that maybe aren't so concrete. The reasons that took me there had substance to me. So I trusted the path me to that position. And then when the doubt appeared whether I could do it or not, I said, no, if I'm here, it means I can do it. because I've had a solid intent the whole way. So I finished. And that's all psychology. Because, okay, yeah, of course, I work out during the week, I train, I eat well. Those are the basics, but those are the essentials. You have to do those. You can't just like that's your physical to happen. But the thing that will make it or break it is the mind when you're competing. Because some people can have 100% physical top shape for racing. But what's going to be the difference between that person and the person who finishes the race first is the mind, because you can, and it's choice. It's choice on how to respond to these messages that appear when you're challenging yourself. So for me, the Dakar, if I and I hope I do end up doing it, it's only so I can meet myself at my limit and then see how I can just grow through that process.
Wow, that's really incredible and really well said. And I would love to see you do that eventually, and wish you all the luck in the world when you do take that path. Hey you, we hope you're enjoying today's episode. We're on a serious mission here to create one of the world's best podcast series, and we'd be so grateful if you could support us in any way by becoming a patron of the show. There's a tier to suit every level, from early bird tiers where you get downloads to all my music with some super cool ninja stickers, to our VIP Mission Maker tiers where you get epic rewards like exclusive footage that never gets aired, the chance to submit questions to our guests with signed copies of books from them, DJ lessons, one-to-one coaching, and a whole load of super cool Ninja and Mission Maker merchandise. You can start supporting us for less than what it costs you to fill up your car for a month by simply heading over to www.patreon.com/Mission Makers. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show. So talking about kind of the resolve and the accident that you mentioned, so I just wanted to touch upon that quickly, because I know that it happened when you were racing in Bahrain last year, and that split second, how did that kind of go on to change you as a person when everything changed for a while, not just physically but also as a world? Quite quickly after that, we just completely put the brakes on hold, at that time. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, the timing was a friend of mine. I saw her when I came back, and she said, "Dania, good timing," because at the time everything stopped, not just everything stopped. And I remember the accident. I had just come back from racing school, and I was confident and I was pushing myself. And I remember feeling a bit discombobulated that day. I felt like my energy was a bit kind of all over the place. I was going faster, but I didn't feel centered. Um, I was dragging my knee on the track on the turns much more than usual. So I was obviously throwing the bike down to the side more than I used to do. I'm not sure why I was doing that. Maybe I was trying so hard to be faster that I was paying less attention to how much I leaned left and right. I'm sure a lot of things contributed to my fall, but what did it was I took a tight left turn, on the back straight of the Oasis, and I leaned too far and I fell on the low side. And then I remember the moment of the fall, I knew that I was no longer riding the bike. I knew that I was not controlling it. And I consciously told myself, which is what the teachers had told me, let go with the fall, go with the fall, go with the fall. I just kept repeating that, go with the fall, because when you just you don't resist, that's when you just could have the least possible damage. And I remember saying that to myself over and over. And then I don't remember what happened. I remember I opened my eyes and I was face down and I wasn't moving. And then I closed my eyes and then I opened them again and I was in the ambulance. So my headgear was off, my suit and everything, and I was in my those gym clothes. So there was a couple of blackouts, but I do remember significant moments of it. And then in the ambulance, I started asking questions. What's going on? What happened? And I was high from the rush of the adrenaline or whatever it was. I was hyper. And I told the medics, "Oh, my toes can move. That's good." And I told them, what are your names? Asking them questions, just having conversations, making sure my brain was active. We got to a hospital, and then I remember blacking out a bit. I opened my eyes again because they were pushing me back into the ambulance. Where are we going? Where are we going? They said, we're going to a public hospital because you have to pay here. And I said, nobody asked me. I mean, if they asked me, I probably would have been like, let's just go, you know. But I'm glad actually, because in the end, I mean, obviously it was better for me, right? They took me to the public hospital, which is a really good hospital. So that was we went to the hospital, and then at this point they didn't know we were broken, but they tried to give me a wheelchair, and when I stood up I collapsed and I fainted. I woke up on the floor and I asked them what happened. They said I fainted. So I think that was from the pain. So I had four broken bones at that stage, but we still didn't know. Three broken bones. The spine was fractured. The three broken bones were in the pelvis. So at that point, we didn't know. They put me back in the bed. They wanted to go to the wheelchair so they could do the scans, but I couldn't. So we took the bed to the X-ray room. I mean, even talking about it now, it's. I was optimistic because I decided not to jump the gun. I said, don't think about anything that's coming. Just stay calm, stay quiet, and listen. Don't assume. Don't make any statements. Because fear wants, when it doesn't know what's going on, wants to give itself facts for you to feel safe, even if the fact is, oh, you can't walk. It doesn't matter. It's just when you're in control and you know what's happening, you feel safer. But I kept pushing any of my thoughts that wanted to control the situation away because we didn't know. Everything was a question mark. Even now with Corona, people like to analyze and say statements to feel like they're in control, but it's still unknown. Most of it is question marks. And I understand that coping mechanism. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen, or I'm just saying it does happen. It happens. But in that situation, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep myself neutral. I listened to Quran a lot in the hospital until I knew what was going on. That really calmed me down. And also, it distracted me from trying to make up a reality to feel secure. And then when they told me that you're completely fine, you just have broken bones that are going to heal, I was so grateful. So grateful. I was so happy because at the time, a close family member was ill, and it was very serious. So I felt like the doctor told me I had a cold, and all I needed to do was drink water and for a few days and I'll be fine. And when she called me to tell me, if you feel better, I said, I can't even believe that you're calling me. Given what you're going through. I mean, how are you even taking this seriously? And she would send me messages, it's going to be okay. I told her I know it's going to be okay. I mean, she's an amazing woman. But so I was just grateful. I was grateful. I felt lucky. So when I came back home, and I was in pain and I struggled everywhere and I couldn't walk for a few weeks, and I had to do physio and all these things, I was okay because I felt lucky. So I was grateful and I was happy and I was relieved. So all the pain and uh, all the physical effort, I felt that it was fine. I felt that it was fine. I mean, if you have an accident on the motorcycle on the track and it hits your spine, and all the doctor tells you is you just need 8 weeks off your legs. I mean, that's good news. That's really good news. So I'm still so grateful. I'm still so grateful. It was difficult physically, but it was nothing at the same time. Given a wider perspective. Um, so yeah, that and it taught me a lot about the COVID. The lockdown, the borders, the boundaries. I was limited and confined uh, to my immediate world, my bedroom, my whatever it was. And I was focusing so much on the smallest things, like how to get in and out of a room that had a step in the doorway. I was figuring out how to get my legs out of bed. I was figuring out how to stand up and sit down from the chair without putting weight on my legs. So I was dealing with very immediate, basic challenges. So when COVID came and they said you can't leave the city or the country or the house, I said, fine. I mean, because I had known what it felt like not to be able to leave the bed.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, all knowing that it's temporary. Would I have the same attitude if this was permanent? I don't know how I would face that. But because I knew my situation was temporary, I didn't struggle too much with it psychologically, just physically, and that was fine. So it's very similar to these. So even now, when the borders are closed and they told us maybe you'll travel in May, I booked my ticket. Actually, three times they had given a date for flights to resume, and I had always had a ticket booked. And my friends, they say, "Dani, you're so optimistic. Don't you get disappointed if it's delayed?" I said, "No, because I'm not. I just have my ticket, so I can leave if it's open, and if it's not, I'll be fine." So you learn how to live within limits and adapt and adjust. And every generation goes through things like this, crisis, global crisis, every generation. So I think that these are human survival lessons. These are lessons, these are universal lessons. And you can, like you said, relate those times directly with my immediate experience of the accident on the track. I mean, it's just that mine is just so happens to be in my individual singular world, but in reality everybody is going through things like this all the time. That was just my sort of version of it. But I did learn a lot, a lot.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think it's true. The energy you manifest when you're in a moment like that, it kind of is what determines kind of some almost somehow how you come out of it, and like what your experience is from that as well. And I mean, you said that that day, your mind was like slightly erratic. Was there a reason for that? And like, would you, if you're in that same state now, when you go back on the track, is there anything you would do to like calm yourself down if for whatever reason your mind was just slightly off balance?
um yeah, it's a focus. You have to refocus. Look, that day my mind was like that, but I don't know if it was fate, and I didn't really have much influence on how much I could contain it, and it was just going to happen anyway.
Mm.
Some things are just written. I have definitely not felt that lack of focus since on any competitive situation I've been in. If I did feel any sort of confusion, like I did on the rally, I stopped. I stopped and I thought, and then I took a turn and then came back a different way. So maybe maybe that's what I learned from the track. Obviously, in the track you can't stop, but you can go into the box, you can pit, just calm down. No race is the be all and end all. If you don't feel well put together, you park. You park. But it's just trying to build that wisdom getting in your way, and there's something deeper on here, and you do really need to take a minute,
Mm.
because there's a difference. If it's just fear, then you could end up in the pit forever. So I'm working on hope finding out the difference.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's going through that process, is I think what probably sharpens your laser focus even more. And I kind of went through, it wasn't on the track, but I broke my elbow actually in end of January, in Davos, and it was the most smallest of things. It wasn't even something exciting like going skiing, which I was obviously looking forward to do. It would have been much more exciting had it been on a mountain or something, but it was literally like I just slipped on black ice. And but it had the biggest impact because yeah, I had to have surgery a couple of times. The surgery wasn't done correctly in Switzerland of all places. And but then I look back and I'm like, what, that whole, and obviously corona happened quite soon after as well. So but it was like 8 9 months of intense physio, and I'm still doing physio actually. But that level of discipline and focus that he gave me in some ways is actually quite priceless. And luckily we both got out of our situations with a recovery in sight. So that's really, really good. So you talked about when you were in a racing season earlier on, and it was spread across a lot of countries and time zones in a short space of time. So how do you kind of look back on that now, as we hopefully go back later into a world where we can kind of travel more, and like it is quite a grueling thing to kind of, go from race to race in a short space of time, different time zones. And, so how do you kind of reflect back on that, and how would you like prepare your mind and body, sorry, to like withstand some of that impact? Because a lot of things change in that time.
Yeah, definitely things have changed. I don't think that at the time I saw what I was doing as excessive. I used to go race in Bahrain, then race in Dubai, then practice in Bahrain, then practice in Dubai. My mother, she said, Dania, I think you're pushing yourself. I think you're doing too much. And I would say, okay, of course, your mother will tell you that, right? I mean, how many times are you getting on a motorcycle in a racetrack? For her, once a year is too much. Should have taken her more seriously, I think. Um, but it was a lot. What will I do? I don't know. I don't like to be too specific. Sure. To keep it open. Will I end up every weekend on a plane? Doubt it. Will I travel regularly for racing? Um, I could. I could. It depends. It depends what championship I do. It depends. It- there's just too much unknown
Mm,
for me
mm,
to give a specific answer. Um, but I doubt that I would do both those championships again on the bike. I'm just looking at different things right now.
mm, mm.
Um, so we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Fair enough. And then during Ramadan, like do you go into completely fasted state, or any part of you, like, do you still train at any point for your motorsports kind of interest during Ramadan?
I still train. Yeah, I still train. So the first week was more challenging because my body was still adjusting to the shift. But I train basically. Sunset is at 6:45 p.m. So strength training I'll do at 4 p.m. twice a week, and then I've got conditioning and kickboxing and things like that. I did them twice a week, also 4 p.m. But then I shifted them to after sunset because if I wanted more um, sort of output from the cardio part, it was better when I was hydrated.
Mm.
So I'd just have my break my fast and then I would go train. And then I went cycling a couple of times around 5 p.m. It's for like a good hour. Then you just have a shower and then you're ready to eat. So that was okay. So I do train. It's different. The output is different. The effort is different when I'm fasting, but it's better than nothing for sure. And
Yeah.
it got better as the days improved because so the body adapts,
Mm,
you
mm,
know.
mm.
So definitely by week 2, which today is the 15th fasting day, by the beginning of the second week it was much more pleasant.
Mm, mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I've seen recently that you got to experience Dakar and you got to co-present the opening ceremony in Jeddah, which is like absolutely incredible. You also got to witness Extreme E, and you got to meet some incredible characters like Zach Brown, Jean Todt, and David Coulthard. So tell me about that. What was that? What was that all like?
um, that's tough to summarize. That was incredible. So the Dakar was amazing because I got invited to host the ceremony, and then I got invited to do some media work for the federation, which allowed me access to the Dakar for 2 whole weeks. So I was on the bivouac, I was on the race assistant route, and I took the opportunity because if I want to be there as a competitor, I thought it would be great to experience it beforehand as a non-competitor. So just the idea of being 2 weeks on the road every day, getting up and going somewhere new, seeing how the bivouac culture worked, the living conditions, all this noise that when you're racing, you don't need to waste energy digesting.
Mm,
So once you have that sort of scope known, then hopefully as a competitor, there's a whole other world of things that you need to concern yourself with. So these basics like the setup, the living, the logistics. These are all you wouldn't even notice them if you had done them already.
Hmm.
So I took advantage of that opportunity and I loved it. And the federation was great. They were incredible, super supportive, helped me out a lot. And I got to meet every single racer. And I can actually say that literally because I was on the stage. Well, that was nice. Monsieur Jantal, he was great. His wife Michelle is so sweet. Um, he was keen, he was interested. He said, "Oh, really? A Saudi woman, racing bikes." It was nice, and I had watched him growing up because of the Ferrari Formula One team when he was heading that. So um, it was nice to see. It was nice to see somebody from that background, from that history.
Hmm.
Um, you know, just just come to Saudi. That tells you how high. I mean, that's it. That's the top. When you look at motorsports in general, if the president of FIA is in town, then then you're at the top. And I'm happy for Saudi because the federation. I mean, everybody they work so hard. They work so hard to deliver the best that they can deliver and to please the competitors, the organizers, the locals, the spectators. I've seen them. They work really hard. They're nice people. So when somebody of that status in an industry arrives, that's an acknowledgement and a validation of that hard work of every single employee, you know, and I'm happy for them for that. And obviously with the Formula One as well, hopefully happening in Jeddah, that's another huge milestone and another recognition of the effort that's being made here on the ground. I'm very pleased for everybody here and abroad. These events are incredible. They stimulate the economy. They engage the people. They bring different cultures together. They improve relations. They open people's mind to different cultures. The exposure is huge to what exists in the world other than in your own corner. I love sport for these reasons. Sport is a landscape for discovery. Back in whatever year they used to get on a ship and explore the world. I mean, for us now, you have a grid that has 20 nationalities on it, and you've crossed oceans. That for me is I love that about sport. And meeting all of those people was great. Zach Brown, very nice guy. David Coulthard, really funny, really nice. I liked him a lot. They were everybody, friendly, open, engaging, um, just receptive, proactive. All of the things that are just energy being harnessed to grow and to build something across cultures. For me, that's a good atmosphere. That's a good atmosphere.
Definitely, and I love what you said, and it's so true. And sports is such a unification of cultures and people and different generations, and it's a universal language. So it's incredible to see that. It's coming to Jeddah later this year, and very very excited. Are you sort of watching the current season at the moment with F1?
I am
Very
watching
nice,
it.
very nice.
It's very interesting, and the Netflix show, really brought things to a new depth. I mean, people within motorsports know what's going on, but it's a close knit community.
Yeah,
And if you've just got access to the race, it's just a series of numbers and
yeah,
data.
yeah,
But the humanity aspect is lost on you, right? But that show, I mean, they brought everybody to life, and I think that gives credit to or at least it's nice for the teams, for everybody involved, for the engineers, for the racers, the drivers, the owners, to be recognized, to be invited to that space, where everybody can understand them and understand what they're doing. It gives more meaning to their performance. You can really appreciate the results and the tactics and the strategy once you've understood that layer, that used to be invisible. So it's become a much more interesting sport because of that added knowledge. You know, you're just more involved.
Yeah, it's incredible what it's done for the sport. We were having this conversation the other day, actually, and you know, I think something like 70 or 80 million people are now new fans of Formula One, and as a result of Drive to Survive. And you know, the biggest sort of thing that one of the biggest things the sport had to kind of, you know, be like address and sort of think about was how to get the newer generation into racing. And this was just, you know, one of the most amazing ways. And people definitely, if you're not on the inside and if you don't, you know, you don't know, understand racing, or even being a racer, like it's hard to appreciate the level of humanity that does go into it, and the sacrifices, and you know, and yeah, just all of the things that you said. So it's I love that show as well. I watched it in, obviously, like within 48 hours, watched the whole thing. So yeah, very interesting. So we're going to move into the audience Q&A now. We've got 2 questions coming from our guests in London and Detroit. Not our guests, sorry, our listeners in London and Detroit. So we got Ali in London, who says, what is the ultimate route to drive in Saudi on a 7-day road trip?
That's a good question. So Saudi is quite big. Saudi's quite big. The the Dakar is 2 weeks around the country, and I'd have to give him more than one suggestion. I can't say a specific road because I'm still discovering them. But recently, somebody sent me a PDF that said road trips across Saudi Arabia. I'll actually forward it to you. You can pass it on to Ali. But there's beautiful areas in the south, on the western region. There's beautiful mountains. It's called the Asir region, and that's more greenery, and weather's amazing. And then if you go up north, it's also mountains, but it's more rocky and desert. And then you go east where Riyadh is, and it's stunning desert, dunes, sandy. Up north, Hayel is beautiful. So there's different regions. Obviously, you've got the empty quarter, in the south, east, southeast, but it's mostly dunes. It's fully dunes. So we've just got such a diverse landscape. So it depends on what you look for. But I'll definitely send you that document. It's worth looking at.
Definitely. So when you actually did the Dakar, then did you explore a lot of territories you'd never been to before in Saudi?
Yes, I mean, I was on the road. I wasn't off road, but we had to drive through a lot of tens of villages, and I did feel like I was getting to know Saudi. You know, it was such a nice feeling because my grandmother from my dad's side is from a place called Hayel, which is north of Riyadh. My rest of my family is from Mecca and Jeddah, and my mother's mother is actually from Lebanon. So I'm from different parts of Saudi. And because I've lived in Jeddah, that was the part that I knew. And seeing Hayel, I actually managed to go 3 times this year, and I had never known it. And it's a quarter of me. So that was nice. It was a good feeling. And I kind of knew myself a bit better after I went. I mean, I knew myself, but I recognized some parts that I could tell I got from that gene, just by being around that area, and you do get to know yourself all throughout your life. I don't think you ever fully, know everything about yourself. I think that's a bit ambitious, but I did feel more, maybe whole, but it was a really nice experience to get to see more of Saudi. And I felt more connected to all the different parts of Saudi Arabia after I did that, instead of associating with one region or one town. Visiting all these other towns made me feel closer, like we spoke about closeness. It made me feel closer to those different regions. They're all beautiful. They're all beautiful, and people are nice everywhere.
Yeah, the footage is just extraordinary. So definitely, that's we'll definitely pass that document on. So second question is from Sean in Detroit, and he asks, "What music do you like to listen to when you're driving?"
Okay, so I have a music playlist called Mixed, and it's so unbelievably mixed, just because I never sit on my computer and change genres. And so uh, I'll hear a Frank Sinatra song come on, and then and J. Cole will pop in after him, and then suddenly I'll have Aretha Franklin, and then a classical music track. I mean, it's just a mess, it's a mess. But I like country music. I like those pop, whatever, Taylor Swifts and whatnot. And then I like, I'm just, I just, it's mixed. I don't have a genre, and I don't even have a decade. So like it'll run all the way from the 50s till 2021. It just means I shuffle a lot because sometimes you're in a certain mood. So if you're listening to a very calm, relaxed, mellow country song, and then I don't know, the Who comes on or one of those, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's mixed. It's mixed.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So we're going to move into the quickfire round, which is the last section of our interview, of our chat today. Just very short answers on each one. We've got 5 questions. So we'll begin with sunrise or sunset.
Hmm. I like how sunset looks, but I like the feeling and the air and the vibe of sunrise. So quiet.
Okay, interesting. If you had to pick one co-pilot to do the Gumball Rally with, who would it be?
I don't know. Like a friend?
Yeah, it could be a friend or it could be someone famous. It could be anyone.
I think I
But
could have a good time with David Coulthard.
I think you'd have a great time. Okay, cool. So I know that you're a fan of the Harry Potter series. So which character do you think would make the best racer?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Um, wow. Um, I think a young Dumbledore would do it.
Oh,
Yeah, I think he's got enough wisdom to know when to attack, when to pull back.
interesting, interesting. Okay,
Uh,
what is your yin and what's your yang?
what do you mean?
Like, we all have things that maybe are like, one thing is our yin and then the other thing is our yang, but they work like together in some way and they make us kind of like who we are. And like I like to say personally, my music's my yin, racing's my yang, like, and I feel like that just summarizes me like super well. But if you could say similar.
Okay. Okay. So maybe driving and reading.
Oh, sorry, could you say that again? Because it was a little bit unstable, the connection there.
No worry. Driving and reading.
Ah, okay, cool.
So
Interesting.
reading is like completely still, completely mellow, completely focused, and driving is just. I mean, you could say racing, but even racing is maybe just driving because then there's movement, so
Hmm.
much movement.
Hmm. Very interesting. And then the last question that we love to ask all our guests is, what's the best thing that's happened to you this month?
I lost you, Farah. Can you repeat it?
Oh, sorry. So the last thing we like to ask all of our guests is, what is the best thing that happened to you this month that you're most grateful for?
This month?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, this month? It's been a good month overall, but one thing.
That you
Uh,
leave feeling like super grateful that this thing, whatever it was, happened, in this month. And yeah.
I mean, it's Ramadan for us, so I think just everybody being together, especially after a year where we've been so separated socially. I think that's been the best thing,
Mm.
seeing
Mm.
everybody again. Mm.
Are you guys like allowed to kind of go to restaurants to break fast and stuff, or
We
is
can
it
go to
like more family?
restaurants. We can socialize within homes under a certain number, and
Mm.
that's been nice because people have been shying away from socializing recently. So
Mm.
it's nice to see my friends, my family, cousins. I've seen people consistently throughout the year, uh, the same sort of circle and group, which has been incredible, amazing people. And now it's like you can see a bit of a wider circle. People feel a bit more comfortable, especially with these vaccinations going around, and so that's been really nice, reconnecting, I would say.
Fantastic. Well, Dania, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and very exciting to hear about where you want to take your journey. And yeah, we're wishing you all the best and look forward to hopefully catching up if you do make it to this side of the pond.
Thank you so much, Farah. Thanks for inviting me. It was so good to talk to you.
Yeah,
I'll
you too.
update you for sure about my travels, and I really had a great time. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
and good luck with the show.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got 2 more amazing guests coming on the show before this season ends. It's definitely flown by, and I cannot believe we're already in May. So be sure to share the show with your friends and subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever else you listen to your podcast, because you definitely do not want to miss our season closes. Feel free to reach out to me at Mission Makers or at dj.n1nja on Instagram. And if you're interested in supporting the show and getting some really cool rewards like DJ lessons and life coaching, don't forget to visit www.patreon.com/Mission Makers. And thank you again for listening. Have an amazing week.